What was it like when you got convicted and you were standing in the courtroom and they found you guilty?
I mean, I'm a dark guy, so you just can see how red and my blood boiled.
Yeah.
My blood began to boil, and I, it's like this hatred just came. I mean, an immense, intense hatred for the juries, for the judge, for the lawyer, defensive lawyer, the prosecutor. And the guard said, "You guys with the red files, you're gonna die in this prison maybe 4 or 5 different ways. You're gonna get executed if you got death sentence. You're gonna die of disease or old age. You're gonna get killed by somebody. Somebody's gonna kill you, or you're gonna hang yourself. You're gonna kill yourself." I wrote hundreds and hundreds of letters, but I said these words: "Dear Jesus Christ, if you're real and you know all things, you and I know I'm innocent. If you help me get out of this place, not only would I serve you, but I'd tell the world about you."
Do me a favor, Darryl.
Yes.
Tell us your story about your time in prison, how you got there, how you dealt with it, and now that you're here, how you got here.
Yeah, well, thank you, first of all, for inviting me to come and share my story, in which I love telling my story all over the country and in other countries.
It's a great story.
Well, thank you. It's a true human story. It's a tragic story, but it's a story where people get sent to prison wrongfully for crimes that, in my case, that I was totally innocent of, and there are others in there as well. And this is another reason why I try to tell the story, because I like the public to know and the listeners to know that there are innocent people in prison who shouldn't be there, and they're there for decades, like I was. I didn't think this had happened to anybody until it happened to me in 1984. So what happened? A little bit of the backstory. Born and raised in the city of St. Louis on the west side, in impoverished community. My grandmother had 9 children, 7 girls and 2 boys. My mother, copycat, she had 9, 7 boys and 2 girls, reverse order. And I'm darkest of all of my brothers and sisters, and mostly of all my cousins.
Yeah.
And I got teased about my complexion. I got called Oreo, chocolate chip, milk dud, midnight light, size shoe, rubber, tar baby, jet black, blue black, triple black. I mean, you name it. Being dark was, that was the butt of the joke for my brothers and cousins. And didn't like my complexion and my dark skin. But Don, I come to realize that my dark complexion, my dark skin, was what really saved me and brought me out of prison. And this happened, of course, many years after the fact. Growing up, I was self-conscious, insecure, and fairly just uncomfortable in my own skin, in my dark complexion. And I asked my mom, what happened to me, Mom? I mean, why am I darker than everyone else? You leave me in the oven too long? What happened, And she teased me, "Oh, you're just my little chocolate drop. Go on, baby." But this is what I thought was a curse. My complexion actually became my blessing, because this is what helped me get returned back to society and helped to prove my innocence. So, just a little bit about that. But what happened was, a guy was pumping gas in his automobile one night, and another man approached and shot and killed him. And this is how I got brought into the legal process. And I had been in trouble with the law in the city, St. Louis. I mean, not to make any excuses. It's just, when you're young, growing up, you got peer pressure, and you want to fit in and be accepted when you do dumb stuff as a kid. But this was the night where a guy was killed, pumping gas into his car, and another man approached, shot him, and killed him. And 3 or 4 people described the person that committed the crime as a short, medium to light-skinned guy. I'm not 7 feet, but man, I'd never be light-skinned. Got teased all my life about my dark skin, so how you confuse me with light skin? No motive, ballistics, DNA, confession, weapon, fingerprint, nothing connect me to the crime.
So
with one exception.
Who told the police, though, that it was a light to medium skin?
4 people. 4 people described.
4 different people.
4 people that night. 4 people gave a description that night to the police.
And they were consistent in their description?
Yeah, 4 people. And they didn't know each other. These are 4, they were just on the gas station lot getting gas. And 4 people. In fact, it was a mother-daughter. They were in a vehicle. Then it was a gas station attendant. It was in what's called a booth, the cashier's booth. And then there was another person who also was there on the gas station lot. And they all observed the same individual, short, medium to light-skinned guy. And they brought me into this whole, what's called legal drama, is what I call it anyway, with 2 guys who were snitch witnesses, guys who were paid and given deals and promises from the prosecutor and the police to come to court and lie on me after raising their hand and giving an oath. And one of these guys, he was facing 30 years in prison. That's what we know is why he was motivated. He was in a jail cell. It's what they call a jailhouse snitch.
Yeah.
And he had done something like this before in another murder case. He made deals. And 5 months after he testified against me, he signed a sworn affidavit saying he lied on me and wanted to recant and retract that.
5 months after?
5 months later, he signed a sworn affidavit. None of this came out until I went in 1984, 85. This didn't come out until 2007. Wow. 2007. There's also what infuriated me about this whole situation, everything being locked up. But I'm thinking the system is going to work. It's 1984. Innocent people don't go to prison.
Right.
Once you get to trial, that's what I'm thinking. Well, I saw this lawyer who I affectionately call a public pretender who pretended to defend me one time for 1 hour. And like I told the lawyer, look, I was in Washington State. I was in another state. Go up there and and connect with my my alibi.
Yeah,
basically. My friend, you can get the airline tickets. I was a new dad. My girl had just had this child who was 7 months. I saw her 3 times, and so I want to raise my little daughter. I just enrolled in college. I want to raise my little daughter, and the reason I was up there, and I was up in Washington State because my friend, he was a drug dealer, big time drug dealer, and I was saying, man, look, I got to make some money. You got to, as they say in street parlance or street language, put me on, man. Basically set me up, man. And couldn't even sell drugs right. I was just not good at that either. But my lawyer said, no, we don't have to prove anything, Darryl. We don't have to prove nothing. It's on the state to prove their case. Well, that's a myth. It sounds good when they say innocent to proven guilty, but Don, that's a myth. When you get arrested for anything and it's something as serious as capital murder, you have to have some evidence to prove that you didn't do it.
Well, the fact that he would ignore you actually had a physical alibi. That you were thousands of miles, or 1,500 miles away.
Yes.
And he
for
said
30 days. I was up there for 30 days.
It would have been so easy to present that and say it can't be him because he wasn't here. Exactly. And here's the physical evidence that says it.
In another
and
state.
He didn't want to present that because he didn't think.
He said the state has the burden.
Well, of course they do. But again, and I'm growing up about this too.
Yeah.
The justice system is not about justice.
That's
the
right.
justice system is about legal technicalities and procedural technicalities.
That's
and
right.
if you don't meet the technical requirements, regardless of whether it's legal or procedural, you lose.
That's right.
You lose. It doesn't matter what's just.
Yeah.
I mean, I did have the opportunity to listen to one of your podcasts or your video, and you talk a lot about, the fact that the Eighth Circuit Appellate Court just basically denied you on a procedural matter. Didn't have any. They're the ones who said, this is a pretty shaky case. This looks like it doesn't. This evidence doesn't add up. But hey, unfortunately, we're not going to grant your appeal.
Yeah, I mean that was devastating, and I got
that's a wake up call, I think, to a lot of Americans. I don't think they really understand.
I don't either.
The justice system is not about justice.
It's not about justice. No, it's not about the truth. It's not about justice. It's not about right or wrong.
Yeah.
And for me, in my case, it was just about a conviction.
Yeah.
It was about a conviction. Well, they just executed a guy here in Missouri.
Right.
About 2 weeks ago now, maybe a little bit more, and Marcellus Williams, and I'm just going to use his name.
Yeah.
Well, they had DNA. They had the victim's family said don't execute him. The prosecutor, they had these guys were paid $10,000 to testify against Marcellus, and they killed him anyway. He was executed with DNA. I'm like, I thought that was the gold standard. I thought that was the one thing that could just really shake the limbs of
DNA
a prosecuting
would be
case. It's because in his case, I think it was about revenge. He was a black man, and the victim was a white woman. And that's what I think. I mean, I have no concrete evidence to say one way or the other, but that's just how I feel. And I was getting calls from people around the country when he was facing the execution. They was asking me what did I think about it, and if I had any things to say and share about Marcellus. And I was sharing with him. I said, I mean, my gut, I'm feeling really bad for Marcellus because this is a political year, and especially in a political year, and to be faced with what he's faced with, being a black guy, and the victim happened to be, a young white woman who. It's about revenge, somebody's got to pay for that. And that's unfortunate, but I said, man, I hate to feel like this about Marcellus, but that's what I was sharing with people, what I felt in my gut. And it's not the first time someone who's innocent was executed.
No, not at all. No,
and it's unfortunate, but I mean, they have done this down through the ages, down through the millenniums, they have done it, So,
but in your case, it almost seemed, conspiratorial in the sense that the prosecutor paid informants against 4 other eyewitnesses who had already provided descriptions of the perpetrator, would be ignored in favor of these 2 paid informants. And as you pointed out, the woman working the cashier booth, didn't she come forward and say
She is
it wasn't
right.
you? It couldn't be you?
That's right. She was key. That was one of the key witnesses
Right.
in this whole case.
And they ignored her testimony.
In 1985, Don, 1985, they found her many years later. But in 1985, she told the police the day of the trial, "You've got the wrong man. That man is too dark. My dark skin is what was coming to help and to rescue me." She had moved away to Baltimore, Maryland.
Yep.
She was not a young woman. But this didn't come out to like 2007.
Yeah.
2007, 2008. This came out many years later.
How did it come out?
Yeah, well, the lawyers and a new group of attorneys, Centurion Ministries,
Through them.
which is the first organization to help innocent people get out of prison, based in Princeton, New Jersey. Well, they took my case after I had wrote them in 1990, and they told me essentially it'll be 10 years before we get to your case. We get 1,000 requests, and we just don't have the resources to take every request that come, through their door. But they said, we'll get back to you in 10 years. So 1990, and they got back to me in 2000, literally 10 years later, and got me out 8 years after that. But they found this lady. They went, they looked at the police report, and looked at all evidence, and they looked at every person that was in that report, every witness, and particularly witnesses who said the description of the person was different than me.
And you, yeah.
And they found her, Joan Williams, never forget her name, in Baltimore, Maryland. She had moved away, and she was not a young woman. And she said, "Look, I told them in 1985." Now, this is 2000, early 2006, 5, 6, somewhere in there, when they found her. She said, "Look, I told them in 1985 they had the wrong man. That man is too dark." And so when she came to court, and the judge was asking her in 2007, he was asking her about, "Are you sure that this is, the wrong person?" She said, "Yeah, Sean, I told him, look." I said, "Look at Darryl. This guy is dark, man." So I know the difference in people may think all African Americans look alike, but we don't. We don't. We have different complexion, different hues,
right,
different skin tone. She said, "Look, he's dark. He's a dark man."
Yeah.
So the man was she said, "I was a cashier at the night. I sold the victim the gas at night. I sold it to him, and then he went and started pumping his gas, and a light-skinned guy ran up behind him and started shooting him." She said, "I was right there in the booth." And she said, "That's what I saw, and that's what I told." She said, "I told the police that in 1985, and they just dismissed it or whatever. They just went on and, and had the trial anyway." She said,
"Well, they just needed a conviction."
Exactly. It was just like what I said. In my case, it was about a conviction,
Not about
black
truth.
on black. It wasn't about the truth. It wasn't about the facts. It wasn't about, and there's something else that really upset me about this here situation, which a lot of things. I shouldn't have been arrested to begin with.
Yeah, you have a whole list of things to be upset about.
Right. But another thing, Don, is that the victim, he was in a feud. A drug war was going on between these two drug gangs.
Yeah.
He was feuding with this other drug gang, him and his gang. And the man who shot and killed him, well, he had shot him 3 other times prior to that.
No.
The judge, the prosecutor, and the defense attorney, the public defender, they had a sidebar, and they talked about this other suspect. I'm talking about 3 separate occasions, like on a Monday, then a month later shot him again. They were shooting at each other and each other's associates for a long time. It was a drug gang, drug war, just like the Al Capone story. And the judge and the prosecutor and my defense attorney agreed not to let the jury hear that. They said, this is what they said. Like they go to the bench. They had this private conversation. Nobody knew what they're talking about except the 3 of them.
Right.
And they agreed, after I got the record some years later, they agreed not to let the jury hear that. And 2 years later, that guy got killed. The rival gang, killed him also. So it was just, I'm saying, man, how could this, like I said, it's not a search for the truth, because they knew that was important. Why would they talk about it first in private and secret? And then secondly, why would they not present it to the jury? They knew it had to be important, because it would have told the jury, "Hey, wait a minute. You got a guy that's out there on the streets, shot this man 3 different times, and told people he's going to finish him off, and you keep that from the jury. You don't let the jury know that." It would have, that would have in itself would have gave them pause to say, "Hey," and then he fit the description. This is a short, medium to light-skinned guy that fit the description and been shooting this guy. Come on, man. I mean,
and you weren't affiliated with these gangs?
No, I wasn't affiliated. I was more affiliated with the victim than I was with the other guys, because the victim was my oldest brother's best friend.
Okay.
And also the victim has a baby with my first cousin. We knew one another. We were like, family, of course, until this happened. So, it split us up. But we grew up together.
So what did they purport was your motive?
They didn't have one. They said there was no motive. What they tried to do was they said that the victim, at one time they tried to say that the victim was feuding with a cousin of mine over a girl. They try to say that the girl was dating the victim and then started dating the cousin of mine, and that's what it all started.
But they never
about.
called them as witnesses?
No, they went and talked to the girl. She said, that is not the truth. That's a lie, and I'm not going to come in there and lie on that man.
So they probably didn't bring her.
No, they didn't bring her. And she said, look, I'm not dating this guy. She had dated him before. She said, and I'm not dating Darryl's cousin, you know. So, but either way, what does it got to do with me?
Right.
You know,
right, yeah.
I mean, my cousin, well, we're all close. They know it's a bunch of us, but, you know, and us cousins, we stick together, and they probably wanted to try to say, you know, that if one of my cousins get into it, then we all into it, you know, and that's pretty much how it was growing up where we grew up. You know, but my cousin wasn't into it with this guy. This guy was into it with some other guys, you know, who was gangsters in the community, drug, you know, warlords, and and he was a tough guy. He wasn't no, you know, what you call pushover, but he was up against some guys who was just a little bit tougher than him.
Yeah.
Where they had more, as they say, they had more gang members than he had.
Yeah.
And they shot this guy, you know, several times, and so
wow.
Yeah, and then they killed him.
That actually foots really well with what our conversation we had a couple of weeks ago with Kyle Hollins. You know, when we talk about individuals committing crimes, it's oftentimes the family who's either encouraging a revenge killing or you know, encouraging the cycle of violence to continue because, you know, if, for instance, you have uncles or, you know, people that are in the generation before you, and they're in this
the
thing. They're in this lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
They hurt one family member of yours, and they want revenge to be extracted, and they will encourage the younger generation to go do it. So in some respects, you could see how a white prosecutor or a white even you call him the pretender defender or whatever,
public pretender.
How they would not even understand or know that, right? They wouldn't understand that. It's you. It's just you. You did it all by yourself for whatever reasons you had, and you're the guy who's going to take the fall for it.
Yeah.
When in fact, you know, it's spread out amongst several people and other family members and all that sort of thing. But they don't want to do that because it's too much work. It's too many people to go interview, too many, you know, people to depose. And what the tragic part, though, I mean, at least from what I can see, is that when there was exculpatory evidence presented to them, that they literally got together and buried it.
Yes. You know, and you're using a lot of legal terms. Are you a lawyer?
No, I had the benefit of going to law school for a year or two.
Okay.
It was actually my career goal was to be a lawyer, but if I couldn't finish my undergraduate degree, it was kind of hard to get a law degree. So, and that was more like a lot of people, I think, back in the 80s. You know, we were like impatient to get started with our careers. You know, because there was so much going on, especially in the technology industry. So when I was offered the opportunity to go to work for AMD, I you know, that was it. I didn't need to go back to school because I'd already reached the company or the job I wanted in the industry. So, so that was part of my problem, losing my scholarship when I did finally get to American University, was that I was on a scholarship and I didn't maintain my B average. I took some law school classes that were more difficult, and I ended up with C's in one or two of the classes, which drove my average down below the B, and that cost me my scholarship. So couldn't afford to go back as much as I would have liked to. But you know, so I understand that procedural, you know, both, you know, criminal and civil procedure is everything, and that what courts are typically doing is just interpreting a statute and then applying the procedure to it. And if the shoe fits, you wear it.
Yeah, well,
they don't care who the victim is. They don't care what justice is, or even what the truth is. It's really a matter of you violated this law. You're the guy that the prosecution says did it. Your defense can't tell me or convince me that you didn't do it. So, because it's really hard to prove a negative. But the reality of this, you know, well, it's up to the state to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. No, all they have to do is convince the jury that you're the only suspect worth convicting, and they're going to convict somebody.
Correct. Exactly.
That's all you have to do. Just convince the right number of people on the jury to convict you.
Persuasion.
And even if it's not unanimous, and it has to be unanimous, the other three people who are holding out, they want to go home.
Yeah.
Right? I want to be done with this. I got to get back to my life, right? Because it's such an inconvenience to have to go sit on the jury, especially a jury of your peers. And I know in one of your videos, you talked about the makeup of the jury. And yeah, they might have been from that area, but they were, diverse in terms of their race and economic condition, things like that. But their lives are being disrupted to go sit on this capital murder case, and they want to go home.
That's right.
Their motive is not finding the truth or finding justice. Their job is to listen to whoever is giving them the evidence, and if they don't have all the evidence, they're not going to go back and ask for more.
That's right. I mean, in my case, it was a diverse juror, but they convicted me in less than an hour, and I'm thinking, they take 20 minutes to walk to the jury chamber and back.
Yeah.
So what did they debate? What did they deliberate?
Not for long.
They didn't deliberate anything.
No.
Their mind was made up. They probably went back and took a poll and said, "Hey, guilty, and let's come on back out."
They took one vote, had a sandwich, went to the bathroom, and came back to the courtroom.
But here is something that I think that and you're making some great points that. And something I thought about for years is that when they sequestered those jurors, and the sequestration, and I mean, you can't go home.
You can't go home.
You got to stay there. And those people, you're right, they want to go home. They're not saying, hey, man, the state, just what they presented. The defense didn't refute it. Let's go home.
Let's go home.
Let's go home.
Who are we to say?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think this was done right, or I don't think there was enough evidence.
You got a person who's been killed, right?
Yeah, I got a victim, right? I got a perpetrator.
You got a suspect, a defendant. It was what they was calling me, defendant, and the prosecution said he did it. Yeah. So there it is.
Well,
we come back with a guilty verdict. The society is safer. The society is happy. The victims, they are happy. They get some closure. No, you don't. You victimize me and my family, and you didn't do anything for the victim and his family because the story didn't get told. The full story is that this guy, not only he's a friend of mine and my oldest brother, but he has a child with my cousin that I didn't know. We didn't learn this. Is what I'm saying. The lawyer didn't investigate. She visited me 1 hour. We didn't learn this until many years later because my cousin kept it a secret because he was in the gangs. Yeah. And she didn't want, and he told her, don't tell nobody, got my child because he's doing some things that he knew was going to bring a lot of heat, behind him. So, they didn't get the full story. And in fact, that the jury didn't learn that I was up in another state, with a friend of mine. So they didn't get the full story. What they got was just some fabricated information from some snitch witnesses that were paid. Brought them in, paraded them in, and this is what they said. And and the prosecution, as well as the defense attorney, they said these words. I mean, just as clear as a bell. We don't have a motive. I don't have a motive. That's what they said. The prosecutor, in his summation, in his closing argument, he said, I don't need a motive. He said, when you look at your jury instruction, motive is not an essential element of the crime. So the essential elements is dealing with premeditation, deliberation, intent, things like that. He said, but motive, so don't even think about motive when you get back there to deliberate. And then the lawyer for me came right behind him and said the same thing. Yes, there's no motive in this case, ladies and gentlemen. They're not talking about the defendant, Darryl, they trying to, say he did it, but they're not telling you that the defendant, she didn't say Darryl, she said, call me the defendant. Yeah. That the defendant, what is the motive for the defendant? Yeah. They don't have a motive. I think that's essential, ladies and gentlemen. The defendant didn't just come out of nowhere and kill this guy without a motive. This is what she was saying. But she's calling me defendant.
Yeah.
How do you think that's going over with the jury?
Dehumanizing you already.
Yes. Yeah, she's called me the defendant.
Well, I tell you, when I told you about going to law school and dropping out, I had a job working for the Superior Court in Washington, D.C., where I was going to school, in the public defender's office, doing the investigations for those public defenders to go find the alibis for the defendants who were being accused of all manner of things, right? So my job was to go into the inner city in D.C., which is
pretty rough.
Pretty rough, man. But I had a car. I grew up in the inner city. I was comfortable going in there. I wasn't scared like a lot of white kids would have been,
Yeah.
And yet it was a little daunting. I'll be honest with you. I walked into a couple of bars looking for
X, Y,
a guy,
Z, yeah.
and all you know this. They all got nicknames. Nobody knows anybody's real name, right? I mean, it's like where does he live? I don't know. What's his real name? I don't know. We call him we call him Big Bob. That's it. It's just Big Bob. That's all I know, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And so it was a horrible experience. I mean, in terms of me being effective. Mm-hmm. But if I went out to go find an alibi witness for whoever the defendant was, and I couldn't, where would I find him? Oh, you might find him in a bar here, or he hangs out over there on this corner, or he's dealing drugs over here. Mm-hmm. And I go there and I can't find him. They just, okay, never mind.
That's just
Never mind. Okay, you
just
did the
give
best
up
you
on
could.
it.
That's
Give
it.
up on
And
it,
I'm a
yeah.
kid. I'm 20 years old, and I'm running around in my car trying to find, literally getting people off these charges. And if I can't find them, because and I hate to editorialize because it's not my place to do so, is that they are not motivated to do it. There's no upside to them. They get paid the same amount whether they win or lose.
Yeah.
There's no, upside or bonus for clearing a case where the defendant ends up innocent. Innocent or guilty, they get paid the same amount of money.
Yeah.
And so all it is, and I remember going into the public defender's room in the Superior Court building in D.C., and this was, mid-'70s, late 70s. This is back when you could smoke in a public building. This place was just a room full of smoke and people who stunk like cigarettes.
Yeah.
In these rumpled suits and, wrinkled white shirts and ties with case files a foot and a half tall.
Was these public defenders?
Yeah. They have so many cases.
Yeah.
They got to clear them. They got to clear them. And so it's just...
So it becomes, and I said in my book, it becomes horse trading,
Yeah.
It becomes like, hey, you give me this guy, I give you these
right, there
three
you
guys,
go.
And
or give me a plea on this guy, and I'll give you, I'll give that guy this.
I lay down on this guy,
right,
for
exactly.
you. I won't put forth, because I know the lawyer in my case, 1 hour for capital murder, 1 hour. What did you look at? What did you didn't look at anything,
right.
God bless her, she, dead now, but I don't want to, disparage. But that's just the fact. That's what happened.
Yeah,
they trade. Yeah. Is a swap out. In fact, then another lawyer I got years later, this lawyer I got, and I did a little research on him because I didn't trust lawyers by this time, but I started doing research and finding out, who are my people, who are we hiring,
right?
What's up with this guy? Well, I learned that this lawyer was best friends with the prosecutor who prosecuted my case. Their kids went to school together.
No kidding.
Yeah. But this was post conviction. I'm trying to get back in court on appeal. 2726 is what it was called back then.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering if he was going to tell me that he was friends with the prosecutor. I said, I'm going to just see if he's going to reveal that and divulge that information, and he did.
Yeah,
he did. But he was he had a different agenda. He said, Darryl, I just want you to know that I'm friends with the prosecutor who prosecuted your case. We went to law school together, so our kids go to school together right now. He said, man, we're really, really close. We're really friends. He said, so I think I can arrange something to help your case.
Yeah.
I said, look here, man, I'm going to tell you right now. This is in 91. I said, you can arrange anything you want to arrange, but, man, if you think I'm going to ever come in a courtroom and raise my hand and lie on myself and said I committed a crime and admit something like that and plead guilty, you got the wrong person, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got me messed up. I used some different colorful language back
I bet
then,
you did.
I was not a religious guy then. Didn't believe in God, but I believed in words. And some of them was some very vulgar words. And so at that point he turned, and me and him became real confrontational.
Yeah.
I would call him, man, and he's paid by my people, and we would be going back and forth, man, with. And he telling me one thing and saying different things, and I'm saying, man, I don't believe what you telling me. You friends with this prosecutor, and I was a difficult client. Let me just put it like that.
Well, you were entrenched in your innocence, which you should be, right?
Yeah.
That's a principled approach to anything, right?
Oh yeah.
So you had strong enough principles to say, look, I'm not going to roll over to some lesser charge.
Well,
if I have to plead guilty to shooting this guy.
Yeah. You got to admit it. But the fact of it was, I had already been burned by some lawyers prior to him.
Sure.
The first lawyer in the first trial, who didn't go and get any of my evidence, who didn't try to help me. So I'm thinking, man, all these lawyers, man, I forget money. This lawyer was a public defender, the first lawyer, but this guy was paid.
Yeah.
I said, they have to get money. They're going to, then you tell me you're friends with the prosecutor and you trying to make some arrangement. Come on, man. How you trying to help me? If you make an arrangement, you make an arrangement to say what? I mean, are you making an arrangement to get me proven innocent? I want my name back. I want my life back, Yep. And a mistake I made this mistake, when I went to get sentenced. I didn't see it at the time because when you're angry, you're emotional. Sometimes your thoughts,
you're not
thoughts,
thinking clearly.
Yeah, it's not as clear. And I was so bitter and so angry. And I filed a motion. in my own little pro bono, not pro bono, but pro se way. You know,
se, yeah.
I'm acting as my own, attorney.
Yeah.
It's because I don't trust lawyers at this time. So I filed this motion and I put it together. I looked at a sample what they did. I said, man, if they doing this here, I'm just gonna follow this here sample, and with the caption heading. But I said these words, which was my mistake. I said, I don't know how long it's gonna take. I'm going to prove my innocence, and I'm suing every one of y'all. I should have never put that in there. When I got to prison, some older, convicts, who had been studying law, they said, when they looked at it, they said, man, they going to fight you tooth and nail.
Yeah.
Now that you said that, they know you're going to sue them. They said, you shouldn't have never said. I said, man, I was so angry. I don't care. I said, man, I was so bitter. I said, yeah, I'm going to sue them. I said, I mean it, and I did. When I got out, I didn't prevail, but... Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about that at some point, but I want to go back to the time. What was it like when you got convicted and you were standing in the courtroom and they found you guilty? I'd love you to walk through what was going on in your head. Yeah. What were you thinking? Is it life over? Where does your head go?
Yeah, let me paint a picture for you as I can. Let me give you, like I said, we're storytellers. We tell stories. Yeah, so the audience can kind of follow along with if I use words to paint this picture as to what was happening. When I'm in the courtroom, before the verdict came down, in my head space, I'm thinking, I'm going home. In fact, I had told some other guys back in the jail, some other prisoners.
Yeah.
So, man, I'm going home today, man. Innocent people don't go to prison.
Yeah, because I'm guessing you didn't make bail, so you were...
No, I didn't make bail. I had been detained for about 9-10 months.
Yeah.
But I'm telling these guys, man, I'm going home. I see you guys, and what little stuff I had, I'm giving it away.
Not coming back. Yeah.
Exactly.
Here's my toothpaste. I don't need no more.
I'm out of here. Yeah, I'm out of here. So this is my headspace, because innocent people don't go to prison. This is what I'm thinking.
That's what you believe.
Yes. The system working. I grew up in the inner city, and our attitude was, look, man, if you did the crime, just go and do your time. Yeah. Nobody in my community, nobody walk around and get caught up and get locked up and was innocent. That's just how we thought.
Sure.
So I'm thinking I'm going home. I'm pretty confident, but they went and they came back so quick. And so the lawyer was kind of standing there just looking kind of, I want to say, indifferent. But I'm feeling, not so confident yet. I'm hopeful. As they say, I'm expecting a good verdict. And when they said guilty, I'm a dark guy, so you just can see how red and my blood boiled.
Yeah,
my blood began to boil, and I, it's like this hatred just came. An immense, intense hatred for the juries, for the judge, for the lawyer, defensive lawyer, the prosecutor. And I'm clenching my teeth probably. I don't know what all I'm doing. I'm probably balling up my fist, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, hi. In my head, I'm saying a whole lot of things.
Sure.
That was not. Polite.
Yeah.
Like, how do you MFs come up with a verdict like this? What's wrong with you? SOB. Right. I'm thinking, man, I'm really, really out, as they say, out of my mind at this time.
Yeah.
But I said, hold your composure, because don't do anything to make it seem like, man, this guy got some anger issues.
Sure.
And if I do any outbursts,
I
knew that. I said, that won't be a good look for me. Mm-hmm. And you got the victim's family in the courtroom. You got my family in the courtroom. You got just other people in the gallery, spectators. So I said, just hold on. Just hold on. But, man, when I get this lawyer in the back room, I'm so angry at this lawyer, I want to just, And so when I get back, I'm like, I went off. What's going on? But, I said, you working with these people. You helping them, you're not doing anything. Oh, we got an appeal. We're going to do an appeal. No, we don't have no appeal. There shouldn't be no appeal. I'm supposed to be going home today.
Yeah.
I'm innocent. Innocent people don't go to prison.
Yeah.
They don't go to prison. And so the courtroom, of course, the courtroom is, got all the courtroom, furniture and ambiance and the look. But for me, that became the darkest moment in my life. And my daughter came to mind, this little girl came to mind. And I said, man, I'm not going to see my little girl. Her mother was at the trial for a few days. It was a 3-day trial. Yeah, her mother was at the trial. I saw her in the gallery sitting there. So her mother was there sitting with my family. And her mother told me, as long as you are in the Department of Corrections or in prison, I never bring my child in there to see you under those conditions. What she said.
Yeah.
And I disliked that. I grew some anger toward her also. I was like, what you gonna keep my child from me because of these lying son of a what they did to me? And you gonna deprive me of my kid too, my one and only kid?
Rubbing salt in the wounds.
Yeah, no question. Yes, So I said, okay, I ain't got time to deal with those emotions. Whatever you need to do, go ahead and do it. I got to focus now on this case and on this appeal.
Yeah.
And so when they put me in these shackles, they put us in these 5-point shackles. Anytime you get convicted in the courtroom, they immediately, especially if something this serious, and this is capital murder, they immediately shackle me up, 2 on my wrists, waist, and ankles. Took me back in the bullpen.
Now, were you sentenced at the same?
I wasn't sentenced at the same
So
time.
at that point, you were just found guilty.
Found guilty,
and then you had to come back for sentencing.
Sentencing was about a month later. Yeah. Right.
Jeez.
But they locked me up. They
Sure.
The guards or the sheriff, what you call them, they knew I was angry.
Did the lawyer at all, your public defender, talk to you at all about possible sentencing and what that might mean?
Yes.
What was her words to you? Was it you're going to go away for life? You're going to get the death penalty? What did she try to manage your expectations some?
Oh yeah, that was on the table. Death penalty was on the table. Lawyer told me, this is a death penalty case.
Capital murder.
Yeah, it's a death penalty case, but the prosecutor waived it. And so
he did.
Yeah, the prosecutor waived the death penalty. He waived the death penalty, but the lawyer.
Do you know why he waived it?
Don't know why.
Because he had exculpatory evidence and he already knew it.
He probably had some stuff that would have came out.
But it would have made him look bad if he'd brought it forward. Maybe he was hoping that one day it might come forward and he wouldn't have to be around when that happened.
This is what I think they were hoping, or this is what I think they would.
You had more time to think about this than probably anybody on the planet.
Oh,
so
yeah. I think they were anticipating because they knew how bad Missouri State prisons were.
Oh, yeah.
That, he get up there, he's going to be part of the gangs. You got to join the gang. You got to be part of, and he's going to probably get killed.
Yeah,
right. He'll never make it out.
Yeah.
He'll never make it out.
I won't be, it's kind of like the plumber who uses a piece of iron pipe knowing it's going to rust out long after he's gone, right?
Long after. That's right. That's what I think. That's what the equation was. He'll never make it out because prison is violent, and of course.
Oh yeah.
And then this guy here was known to be a part of a drug gang, and thinking they're gonna put me in this prison. I'm gonna end up meeting some of his friends, which I did.
Yeah.
And in fact, he had a brother there. His brother's still
really?
there. Yeah, he had a brother there. His brother is still there, right to this day.
The perpetrator, the actual perpetrator?
No, the guy who was killed.
The victim.
So they think, the guy who was killed, the victim.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to be put in prison with some of his buddies.
As if you killed him. Yeah,
as
right.
if I killed him, that's not a good look, And then he's got a brother there. He's got some other relatives there, cousins, and so it's not a good look. And I think that's what their gamble was. Like, he's going to, and I did. His brother and I was in the same, we came face to face with each other, just like this here.
Yeah.
And I said to him, look, man, I didn't kill your brother. I said, there's nothing I can say that's going to change how you feel or what you think. Sure. I said, I can give you all of my documents, man, all the court filings and records. You can read it for yourself. It may, give you some insights. It may not. I said, but look, if you want to read it, he said, yeah, let me read it, man. I want to read.
Really? He took that time to do that?
He did. He said, I want to read your transcripts. I want to read everything.
Well, that's a real man. That's a manly thing to do, right?
It is.
Because he could have just said, no. Screw you! I know you're the guy, right?
Yeah. He could have said that, right? But he didn't. No,
good for him.
Yeah, it is. He said no. He said I want to read it. I said I'm gonna give you all of it. I said all my whole legal file. All I ask is that you give it back because I'm still fighting my case on appeal.
Yeah, sure.
He said I'm gonna give it back. Because he had life also. He was there for murder itself.
Right.
So he was there. He's gonna be there a long time. Like I said, he's still there. Gave it to him.
Right.
And about I don't know maybe 3 or 4 weeks or whatever. He read it and he gave it back. He said, man, it's just something don't add up.
Really? So he actually did look at it. He did. Understood what it was saying.
Yeah.
And came back to you.
He said something don't add up.
Doesn't add up.
Yeah. He didn't say he thought I was innocent.
Well, okay,
right,
but as long as he wasn't going to.
Right. Of course I know.
Take you out in the middle of a.
Well, I had to watch him.
Yeah.
I had to watch him, and then when he had to watch me too. Because I'm not gonna let nobody hurt me, man. In prison, if I got to, self-preservation, man, I got to save my life. And but I wasn't gonna be the aggressor. I wasn't gonna go after this guy. But I was definitely gonna, try to defend myself.
Got your head on the swivel. You're paying attention.
And that was not just for him. That was for everybody.
For everybody. Yeah.
Right. And man. And I didn't know some of, the guy's buddies. I knew a few of them, but the guy who was killed, I know he got some buddies, these some gangsters. So I know what I'm up against.
Yeah.
In other words, but yeah, I knew I had to watch him. And he was a big dude, too. He lift weights. I'm 147 pounds when I went in.
You're the little man, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little man, but he's short, but he's stocky, built, but he was a good brother, and I'm saying I knew these guys.
Yeah.
I knew him on the streets.
You knew him on the streets.
Yeah, I knew these guys. Like I say, this is my oldest brother. The victim is his best friend. They older than me, but this is my oldest brother's best friend. So I knew him, and I knew his brother, and some of his we knew one another. So anyway, he read it, and he gave it back to me, and he said he's fighting his case. He said, man, just keep fighting, He said, I wish you all the best.
Really?
That's what he said. I wish you all the best. I said, look, man, I want to clear my name because I want the only way, you guys will be really convinced, you and your family, is that I can prove that I was innocent.
Yeah.
Then I'm innocent. That's the only way, He said, I wish you the best, man, and so we never said too much more after that. I see him on the yard.
But credit to him for that. Credit to him for that.
Yeah. Here it is. And that's another thing that's ironic, Don, is that, since I've been home and we got this organization called Miracle of Innocence, he's reached out to me, asking for help. Yeah, asking for help.
Well, that's good.
With his case. I said, man, just, write to the organization. I can't guarantee you nothing, promise you nothing.
Yeah.
Write to the organization because that's what we do. We look at cases of innocence. So we never know.
I hear that, and it's actually quite moving that, a guy who could have easily been, could have killed you, became convinced that you were redeemable enough to leave you alone at least, right? You're not gonna be best friends, but at least leave you alone. Tell his buddies leave you alone,
right.
And then here's years later come back to you and say, hey, help me if you can.
Help me if you can. Yeah, help me with my case.
So
that's what I told him. Right to the organization, man. And we don't know, we're not sure, but if you meet our criteria, organization will help you.
It's almost like, in some ways, you were touched by an angel.
In some ways, yeah.
I mean, it was hell on earth, I get it,
right.
But here was somebody who could have ended your life easily,
early
on, before you ever
absolutely.
thought about serving all these years.
And the thing of it is that, I know that place. I mean, at least I began to know it and understand that world, the prison world, which was described as the bloodiest 47 acres in America. That's what where I was at was described. Yeah. But what I understood is that he wouldn't be the one who would come after me.
Right.
He would get somebody else come, one of his gang members. He was gang related,
Yeah.
And it would be somebody I'm totally clueless about, not, anticipating.
Not watching.
I'm watching him, right? I'm watching him. But also I knew I got to watch any and everybody that I see he associate with.
Right.
And, and I see him talking to a few guys, and in prison, and I, of course, I would say, well, I know I got to watch these guys, but then I didn't know what they was talking about, because I wasn't part of the conversation, and but
you could have well been. I mean, who knows, right? But at least he got the word out.
No, I'm talking about I wasn't part of the conversation, listening in and having a conversation, discussing with them. Right. I could have been, it could have been something that they was,
had.
Yeah,
they had a little get together on their own. And said,
right.
Hey,
but I'm just saying, I'm not in there sitting in there with him,
Yeah, but he was at least telling those people, hey. He's cool.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, no question about it. I have no doubts about that.
That's amazing.
It is, but I do have a couple of times where guys came to me, and it wasn't associated with him. It was some different guys.
Different guys, yeah.
Yeah, and the guy came to me a couple of times, couple of different occasions. Don, and the guy said, hey, Darryl, them guys over there, they called me D in prison. Like I said, another thing you said about people don't want to know your real name in prison. We don't. We know nicknames. That's it.
Yeah.
We don't want to know guys' real name. I said, but them guys over there was talking about stabbing you last night. I said, what's for what, man? I haven't done anything to those guys. I said, I see them on the yard, but I haven't had any problem with them. No, but you was talking to that guy over there that had a problem with him.
Yeah.
And they saw you talking. They thought you was with him, so they're going to stab you both. And the guy I'm talking to never brought that up. Never said that he got a problem. And I don't want to know, really. But if I'm talking to a guy, it was two things I was interested in. Man, look, you got any case law? Have you found a case, man, that can help me get my case back in court? Or if you're plotting an escape, don't leave without me.
Yeah.
Seriously, those were my conversations. And there was a couple of guys who were escape artists, and I used to watch them, but they always went by themselves. They knew how to get out, and I said, man, I'm going to watch them guys because, boy, they're going to get away, and I'm going too. I'm following them because I want it out. And
sure.
If I could escape, just like the movie Shawshank Redemption, the guy who escaped, They always escape by themselves. You know,
Yeah.
they don't take it. They don't very seldom.
It's too hard.
Twos.
It's too hard.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know, because
too many things can go wrong. You just double the number.
Somebody ain't gonna keep the words to themselves. You know, somebody gonna get to talking. You know,
and then, they're gonna bring a friend, and they're gonna bring a friend, and before you know it,
your whole plan get blown up.
Right, because you can't take 3 or 4. You can handle one, but
exactly, and that's a guy that's probably in the cell with you, but I'm in a different cell than these two of them. One of them named Minks. They was escape artists. But these guys, I don't know what they knew. But they knew how to get out. And the prison where I was at, that's where.
And that was that old prison that you were in, right?
Old prison, 1836, Missouri State Penitentiary, Burton, 1836.
1836.
Yeah, 1836. And this guy named James Darryl A. That's where he escaped from.
Yeah.
You know, the guy that was accused of killing Martin Luther King. That's where he escaped from, that prison. You know, and other folks, escaped from. They had a prisoner named Pretty Boy Floyd was in that prison at one time. Another prisoner, and there was named Sonny Liston, who boxed his way up out of that prison, became world champion. So it had some what you call some famous folks there. I think Jesse James was in our.
Was he there too?
I think at one time him and his brother Frank. That's what I believe. But I wasn't supposed to be there and didn't like it, and hated it. And first prison I think entered that place was the Battle of the Alamo. When the Battle of the Alamo, that's when the first prison got there in 1836. Yeah. Rusted pipes that smell and taste like sewage. The water. It was a horrible place.
Just a horrible place.
Yeah.
Hell on earth.
Hell on earth. That's right. That's how you can describe.
So, how you talk about this in one of the videos of you I watched about hold on for 5 more minutes.
Oh yeah.
How did you?
That's a powerful story.
Yeah. Tell me about that. And because there are when people have bad habits, like drinking or smoking or stupid things like that. You'd say, well, I'm not gonna smoke yet. I'm gonna have the next. Well, okay, I'm gonna wait 5 more minutes, right, before I have that next cigarette. And then when that time comes, you forgot about it by then, right? Yeah. So I'm gonna wait 5 more minutes. My dad quit smoking, but he carried around his cigarettes for 6 months. Oh, I said, why are you carrying around your cigarettes? He goes, because I didn't quit. I just put it off. And every time I have the urge, I just put it off. And I thought, that's a pretty good idea, right? So in your case, obviously, it's a whole different set of circumstances. But I heard you say that in this video about just hold on for 5 more minutes. Yeah. Your miracle could be right behind you. You just never know.
Yes, it was a gentleman. Now, I'm sentenced to life without parole for 50 years, plus 25 years consecutive. So 75 years, and I'm supposed to stay in that place.
Now, how old were you when you went in? How old were you in?
22 years old.
Oh,
22.
Dang.
So 22 and 75. I'm a new dad.
Yeah.
Like I said, just enrolled in college. So you just basically saying, you won't get death by lethal injection. It's death by incarceration.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
It's just another death sentence. It just takes longer.
Exactly. It's a slow death. And so, let me say this before I tell you the 5-minute story is that when the guards brought us into this prison, it was a new prison that they built called Potosi, and they had death penalty inmates and guys with life without parole. That's who were sent to this prison, this new prison. And they had these folders about this thick. They call them the red books, because every folder, every guy who had that type of sentence, a CP number, capital punishment, or life without parole, had a red folder, a red file. Everybody else had green or blue or whatever. But
color-coded,
Yeah, right. So we had the red files. And the guard said, you guys with the red files, you're going to die in this prison maybe 4 or 5 different ways. You're going to get executed if you got death sentence. Yeah. You're going to die of disease or old age. You're going to get killed by somebody. Somebody's going to kill you. Or you're going to hang yourself. You're going to kill yourself. And that's what they said. Of 1 or 4 or 5 ways, none of you guys leaving here alive. That's what they said. And I said, you're not talking about me. They were some big old guards. I said, I said under my breath. I mean, because I knew they would hurt you. But they didn't tell us that, God going to kill you.
Yeah.
See, they never put that in there. They said, like another inmate going to kill you. But the guards also, potentially could kill you. And so that's the 5th way. But, of course, they're not going to say that.
Sure.
But so it was a guy came into the prison one time, and he was talking to a bunch of prisoners. He was somebody from society. We don't know. Never saw him before. Never saw him again. But he came in, and a group of prisoners, was in this room. It was a program that they put on, and had speakers from the outside come in. And these were his words. These were his words. He said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, look, I know you guys, this is hell on earth. I know you guys, this is depressing. Being in a cage, being locked up like an animal. You've been deprived of a lot of things. You're told what to do all day long. He said, I know this is very depressing. very dispiriting and very hard
Yeah.
on you, man. He said, but I want to encourage you to do one thing, nothing else. If you can remember this here, what I'm sharing in this presentation is that don't give up and don't quit 5 minutes before your miracle happened.
Yeah.
And I held on to that. And the reason is because this is why I think people die in their life and commit suicide. It's that they're looking out into the future and they don't see any change.
Right.
They're looking out ahead and they thinking, man, if this is how it's going to be for me in the next 5 years, 10 years, what's the point? What's the use of going on?
Yeah.
Because that's how I was thinking. But when he said 5 minutes, I said, man, I can't look 5 weeks or 5 months down in the future, but I can do 5 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
Let me do, and I reduced to doing that time to 5 minutes at a time. And I just held on, said, when I got through that 5 minutes, just hold on for 5 more minutes. Just hold on for 5 more minutes. And I kept doing it until the day that I was released that morning. And I came to 2 doors. These were not secure doors. Everything else was gates, locks, chains, they were secured. These doors didn't have no security because these are the doors where the staff, everybody came in and out. Right. They were just swinging doors.
Swinging doors.
And I got to those 2 doors, and the warden and some other guards and my attorneys, they were all there, and they were shaking hands and celebrating or just congratulating. And then they came back to me. I said, that man was right. In 5 minutes, I'm going to be a free man.
Be out there.
My miracle is going to happen in 5 minutes. And the lawyer said I went into a trance. I don't remember this. They did. They said I just started chanting, praise God, praise God. I don't remember any of that. And I don't remember leaving that prison, and going through those last 2 doors. I don't remember. It's like you hear people say they had a blackout and they can't remember what happened.
Yeah.
I used to think people were just making that up. I did.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can become, I guess, so excited or in a shock or whatever. I blacked out. But my body is still functioning.
Right.
But
right.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I do not remember.
Your body's in the moment and your brain is somewhere else.
Somewhere else. Yeah. I was so, I guess, the excitement and the shock, because I was in disbelief. It was surreal.
Yeah.
And I was on the outside, and I remember somebody had some video that they showed me later on, and you could tell I just looked lost. I was real. I just looked like I was an out-of-body experience. I still had on prison clothes.
You're right.
I had on a prison white T-shirt and some prison gray khaki pants that they give us, and and I'm looking around. It's like I'm like, man, the world just seems so different. Because I could actually see trees that was like this big plant over here that was seemed like it was, I could touch it, and here's another thing, and I shared this in the book, is that I hadn't seen a squirrel. I had not seen a squirrel in 25 years, something like that. And I was wondering, and somebody had asked me, because I was with a guy and a squirrel jumped on the tree and I froze, and I looked at it, and of course the squirrel froze and was looking at me. It's like we 2 aliens. And the guy said, man, Darryl, you having a problem? What's going on? I said, man, I hadn't seen a squirrel this close in 25 years. I said, it dawned on me why I had not seen the squirrel. Well, there are no trees. There are no trees in the prison, on the prison yard. That's why. It's just concrete, steel, metal, gates. There are no trees, so squirrels wouldn't be.
Why would they be there?
They wouldn't be there. And it just registered. I said, that's why I hadn't seen squirrels. And all that time. But that's the 5-minute story, man.
Well, so you're on your way out. You're having this out-of-body surreal experience, and you're saying, praise God. When did you find God?
Oh, that was
because you went in
an unbeliever. As an unbeliever. That's right. And didn't think I would ever believe in God. But my grandmother, when I got away from the church,
because you were mad, even if there was a God, you're like, how the hell can you do this to me, right?
No. Never blame God. I didn't believe in God.
Okay.
So it wasn't. That just logically that wouldn't have made any sense to me. Why I'm gonna blame something I don't believe in? God don't exist. Human beings did this to me. I got to deal with human beings. Human beings do human things to other human beings. So, but my grandmother told me years ago, said, one of these days you're gonna need Jesus. You're gonna need God. She was strong in her faith, traditional Baptist faith. And I said, no, Grandmama, I'm not going to need your God. Jesus ain't done nothing for us. We poor, I mean, back in the day, they called them homeless or houseless people. Today, we call them hobos.
Hobos. We call them hobos,
we call them hobos.
I'm old enough to remember that.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but my grandmother fed those folks. She fed a lot of mouths to feed anyway. So, no, Grandmama, I don't think I'm ever need your God or Jesus. She said, well, if you do, I just hope you remember to call on him. Well, she had died by this point. I'm in there 10, 15 years. So as I'm writing letters, I'm writing lots and lots of letters and filing motions and pleadings and getting denied. And then I was talking to some religious guys, whether they was Christian, Buddhist, Judaism, whatever faith. And I used to challenge them, man, why don't y'all God do something about famine and about poor and, and earthquakes and all this other stuff that's happening in the world? Why don't your guys help with these situations, guys? And Christian guy asked me, said, Darryl, man, you blame God when all bad things happen, but do you give him credit when something good happens?
Yeah.
I said, let me get back to you on that one. I hadn't thought of that.
You got to think about it. I can count the good things on one or two fingers.
He made me think, though. He paused me. And another guy, Christian guy, said, Darryl, why don't you just get the Bible and read it for yourself?
Yeah.
You like reading books, just read it as if it's literature. It's just maybe it's some, theological literature, some Hebrew literature or some Greek literature from years ago.
Yeah.
I said, you know what, that's right, I'm going to read it. He said, but I just ask you and challenge you, if you do read it, read a Bible with red letters, because those are quotes straight out of Jesus' mouth. And at this time, I had literally wrote Jesus a letter also. I wrote hundreds and hundreds of letters. But I said these words, dear Jesus Christ, if you're real and you know all things, you and I know I'm innocent.
Yeah.
If you help me get out of this place, not only would I serve you, but I tell the world about you.
Yeah.
Sincerely yours, Darryl Burton. Didn't have a mailing address, but I did it for two reasons. One is because, God, I'm challenging. I'm from Missouri. Show me.
Yeah, show me.
And then the next one is that when guys come talking about Jesus and God, I'm like, look, man, I've written him a letter. He's not answering my mail. Come on, fellas. Let's keep God out of human affairs. Human beings got to.
It's like writing a letter to Santa Claus.
Yeah.
It's
made up.
He hasn't written back yet.
The tooth fairy.
Exactly.
So, I'm reading these red letters, and this guy, Jesus, said, love your enemy. And I'm like, what? I hate all these people. Anywhere in the world, I hate anybody that's part of the, the law enforcement or criminal justice system.
Yeah.
And he's saying, love them. Like, this is some strange religion, man. I can't go for this. And then the second thing he said was, pray for them. Pray for them. Pray for people who did this to me. Yeah, I pray for them. I pray a building fall on one of them fools. That's what I pray. I wasn't saved. But this is a verse that got me. Luke 23:34. When Jesus, who's also an innocent man, I didn't know the story of Jesus being an innocent man because I didn't read the Bible. I didn't study theology. I said, man, this guy was innocent too. But in Luke 23:34, he's being crucified and killed on a cross. He said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That one verse is what touched me, Don. And that's what began to transform my heart. I'm thinking, how could this guy forgive these people? And they're killing them, and he's an innocent man.
Yeah. So
I said, if he can do this at the point of death, then surely I'm in the land of the living. I can start forgiving these people, or at least trying to. And I began to pray for them through clenched teeth. I'm going to pray for them, Jesus, but you know what they did to me. Make them turn around. You know that I'm like, make them do the right thing. I was so angry. Yeah. And then I just gave up and said, no, God, it's too hard. I can't forgive them. But it's like something whispered in my spirit and said, no, Darryl, you can't forgive them, but I can forgive them through you if only you would let me.
Yeah.
And then I look back at that verse, and you know what I learned? And I discovered that Jesus couldn't forgive him either in his humanness. That's why he said, Father, forgive them. Yeah. For they know not what they do. And I learned also that forgiveness can only come from God through us if we let God use us to forgive those who hurt and harm us. Right. I said, that's how the forgiveness works.
We're just the vessel.
Exactly. It don't come from human beings. It comes from God through us. And that freed me. 8 to 10 years before I ever left prison, I was at peace. Guards, inmates saw, I said, man, Darryl, you're so peaceful. What is it? I said, man, there's something about this guy, Jesus. I don't know how it works. I don't even know why it works. Yeah. But he showed me something, man, that I'm at peace inside of me. Whether they let me go or not, I know my truth. Yeah. I'm a free man. I'm born free. Yeah. And these gates and these prisons can't never hold me in a cage.
Right. Well, you made a comment in one of the videos about letting go of the hate, letting go and forgiving, because not doing it was its own form of prison. I thought it was really poignant because it would be, right?
That's right.
I mean, carrying around all of that bitterness right?
That's another prison. Yeah, well,
That's
I got
another.
I learned that from Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
Nelson Mandela had said that when he was asked why was he not bitter and angry and filled with revenge, and and unforgiveness, he said, well, that's another prison, self-imposed.
Yeah.
That's a self-imposed prison. And Nelson Mandela said it, and I said, I agree with that. I'm not going to put myself in a prison of mentally or spiritually or emotionally for things I can't change.
Right.
The years I can't get those back. And I want to be free spiritually.
Let's talk a little bit about the Eighth Circuit appellate opinion that sent you back basically to square one, right? You were appealing. This was pro se on your own doing this, and you got to the Eighth Circuit?
No, I had some lawyers.
You had lawyers then.
Centurion, Cheryl Pilot,
okay.
Was Jim McCluskey, Charlie Rogers,
yeah.
Sean O'Brien, bunch of lawyers, and who was.
So talk about that a little bit, because you made the point after getting the opinion that you just thought that was the end of the road.
That's right. Yes. Well, that was. I'll never forget it. It was July 2002. And I had already served almost. I was almost at the 20-year mark by this time, and. And then there was Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals, and this is what they said. I'm gonna paraphrase, but these are some of the terms that they used. They said that this case troubles us. Burton's case shakes the limbs of the prosecution case. The new evidence that has come to light suggests that Missouri may have convicted an innocent man. They said, with no small degree of reluctance. That's the phrase, one of them that got me. With no small degree of reluctance. We deny Darryl Burton's writ, even though the facts suggest he may very well be innocent. Then in another paragraph toward the end, they said, we hope that the state of Missouri, through the judicial or the executive branch, take a second look at this case.
Yeah.
It crushed me. And I said to the lawyers, man, there's no hope now, because this is the Eighth Circuit. They are the next step to the Supreme Court of the United States.
Yeah.
And I said, man, what, Darryl, don't just hold on, don't give up. I didn't want to wake up another day in that place after that.
Yeah.
And the lawyers had me call them every day because they knew I was really low. And I like to think mentally I'm strong, but every person have a breaking point.
You get defeated. I mean, it's no
you
still got to get up, right? And you're on the ground. You've been beaten down, and
you got to get up.
It's like they say, it's not how you get knocked down, it's how you get up. And sometimes, man, getting up is hard, right?
And man, in that 5-minute approach that guy talked about, it just didn't. Yeah, it wasn't panning out.
Yeah, I got to get a minute from now because
so 5 seconds, but it wasn't panning out at all. I'm like, I'm done. I'm through. And the lawyers, they was still pulling things together and information, and doing some investigation.
Right.
And they was trying to keep me encouraged and keep talking to me and keep me on the phone or whatever they was trying to do. But this is what also I think kind of gave me some hope. There's this young lady who was the same age my daughter.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about her.
Yeah, Jessica Chaz. I'll never forget her. She's about the same age as my daughter. Became like my surrogate daughter.
Yeah.
And we was corresponding and writing each other, and her and her family. They would send me pictures in Switzerland and other parts of the world. She was just, giving me hope and keeping me inspired. And every time I would hear from her, and sometime I could call her and talk to her and her family, it was like I was talking to my own child, my own daughter. I mean, not like that, but that's what it was, just inspiring me and encouraging me.
How did you meet her?
And I met her through Centurion Ministries.
Okay.
They had some posters of lined up. They was giving like a presentation. They was out meeting donors and just community folks, and they had about 20 of us. They said, look, anybody want to write any one of these guys?
Yeah.
This is the number, this is the prison, that's where they are. And she chose me.
Really?
Jessica chose me. She was in high school. I think she was 9th grade or something that at the time. Yeah. She chose me, said she wanted to write me. And that was very encouraging, because I said my little daughter was about in the 9th grade by the time.
Yeah.
I was keeping up with her mentally in my head.
Sure.
I had no contact with her. And we started writing and corresponding, and then she, asked me, if it's okay if she introduced her parents and family and sisters to me. Yes, absolutely. So we started corresponding, and they asked if it would be okay if I would, call. Would I like to call? In fact, so they was getting to know me, and just gradually, and then they started going to different places in the world, sending pictures. But it was, and this is how I think the Spirit of God works, because I had made up in my mind at this point, Don, I'm done. Tonight is it, and I was going to figure out a way to just end it.
Yeah.
And they had mail call, and that's the guards. They bring in mail call, and getting letters from the outside is like, boy, it's like gold.
Yeah.
It is so precious. And they had mail call. So I'm thinking, I'm just kind of nonchalantly moving around. I'm just in a daze.
Just going through the motions.
Yeah, it's going through the motions. And they called my name, Burton, got mail. And so other guys, they got their mail. And when I went up there, and there was a couple of pieces of mail, but one of them was from Jessica. That's all. And I hadn't heard from her in a while. So I went up into, the cell, and my roommate, his cellmate, he was out doing something, I don't know, he wasn't in the cell at the time. So I'm in the cell. You have to, when you go in the cell, you have to lock the cell door.
Yeah.
He'd been out, whatever he was doing, microwave, shower, whatever. But anyway, you get a mail call, you get a little time to move around. So that was the first letter I opened,
Yeah, sure.
I said, man, Jessica, So I'm still saying to myself, man, she ain't gonna hear from me anymore. Yeah. So
she'll feel bad.
Yeah, because I'm thinking this is it. This is the last letter I'm gonna see from her, but she's not gonna see another letter from me.
Yeah,
another return letter. And when I opened it, it said these words almost verbatim. Darryl, I'm praying for you. Just hold on, don't give up. God is gonna get you through. Man, I bawled like a baby. Man, I couldn't hold back. I couldn't hold back, Don. I just cried, and I cried. And I'm like, man, is this a sign from God or what? But just hold on,
So another angel.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I was getting, man. It was just like
it's funny, like
yeah.
One of the Christian people told you about,
yeah.
we don't remember the good things, or we're not counting the good things that happened. We're only counting the bad things that happened, and wondering why God didn't do something.
Yeah.
But yet, there are moments, right, where the hand of God or something. Right?
That touches us.
Touched you in a way that made an incredible impact. I mean, obviously it had just a
like
huge
I said,
impact.
Right. I cried, man, and you don't want your roommate.
You got me crying. I'm
I know it,
talking about it.
I know it, but you don't
get
want
choked up.
Right. You don't want your roommate to see you crying, and so I knew I had to get myself together, because you got to stay macho in there at all times. Very seldom. If they see you crying, you crying because you're angry at something. I kind of pulled myself together, washed my face, and he came in, and of course, saying, just talking, just the prayers and talk, and I said, yeah, man, I just want to lay back. I'm just gonna watch some TV, some sports or something, and we had our own television, so put on a sports station, man, and just start watching some sports. But I had a letter with me in that bed, in that bunk.
Yeah.
I just hold on to the letter. Tears just.
Whoa. That's the kind of stuff, man. I got to tell you.
Yeah, man.
Hearing your story and meeting you and getting to know you.
Tears just roll down my face.
Yeah. Well, we talked.
Yeah.
Let's move on to something positive. We can.
Man. Yeah, that's
you
bring back memories.
You talk a lot about hope and forgiveness, and it's really moving. And you talk about your daughter and the story about finding the 17 cents. That really, tell that little story, because it's another compelling element. Another, I don't know, the finger of God touching something, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Just all through this story, man. Just one touch from God after another. But yeah, my little daughter, I didn't know what they had been going through. I didn't know. Well, at the time, she was the only one born. She was the first child that her mother had, and she had other children after my child with some other guys. But my daughter said that she must have been 11, 10, 11, 12 or something like that, and her little sister and little brother 1 and 2, and they was living in this vacant house.
Yeah.
Her mother had used to get and go on binges and leave for days, and so she was trying to find.
And she's
10, 12 something
10,
like right.
Okay.
So she's these little kids, these two little kids, her little brother and sister, she got to feed them, and they hungry. And there was a confectionery, or a little, mom and pop store across the street.
Store or something.
Yeah, right. And so, and she looking around, in the house and the place, and she found 17 cents, and so, and she went over to, the proprietor of the convenience store and said, I'm trying to feed, get some food for me and my little brother and sister. So she's a little girl, and they was in the window. They was looking at her, you know.
They're watching
her.
Yeah,
they was watching her. And the guy said, well, where's your parents? Where's your mom? And where's your dad? She said, I don't know. And I think that's how she lost parental rights, you know, and they ended up in foster care. So the guy gave him, he gave him some food, some cereal or something, but that's all she had was 17 cents.
But did they called child services?
I think so. I think somebody called. I think because shortly thereafter they ended up in foster care, and since she was like 12, they wouldn't keep them together. But she just asked. She said, "Well, can you keep my two little, siblings together? Yeah, keep them together. And said, can you just keep them together?" And they decided they kept them together, but they separated her from, the two little ones, and they of course it fractured the relationship with them, just like being separated from me. Fractured relationship that I have with her is kind of a strange. She lived right in Overland Park, but 20 minutes from here.
But you have a relationship with her.
Not like I want to. Like she is.
You told a story about calling her every day, and she's like, "Hey, Dad, pump the brakes here. I got a life too."
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, she did. She's a pump your brakes. I'm a woman now. You calling all the time. So the same thing going on today that was going on yesterday when you called. The same thing. I'm working. I'm just doing what I do.
Yeah, but you got her in your life. I mean,
I was trying. I was just wanting to make up for lost time, and even now she's just like. Sometimes she may respond if I call or text. Sometimes she won't for months, and so it's not close. She said, "I know you're my dad."
Well, she grew up without you, right?
Exactly.
So she's made a life for herself without you in it.
Or her mom. That's right. So, I said the only thing I can take credit for giving you is the fighting spirit. We're both fighters. She graduated high school on time, emancipated herself from foster care. So I can't take everything. She's got her own place, her own car. She she works. She got buy her own clothes. She's not married, no children. So.
Well, but you have room in your life for her, and that's she
what
knows
I tell
that
her.
now.
Right, that's what I tell her.
That's a good thing.
So,
right.
And she called me for Father's Day this year. We got together for Father's Day, man. But that was very very touching situation. 17 cents.
17 cents, man. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what you're doing now. Talk about your ministry.
Yeah.
What you're working on, the positive things going on in your life, and what you're bringing to the community. Based on your experience, let's talk about that a little bit. Tell me about what are you up to now? What are you doing? I know you're working with Church of the Resurrection.
Right? Work with Church of the Resurrection, and so Church of the Resurrection is, of course, I think it's about 25,000 members.
Oh yeah, they're the biggest force in the Methodist Church here in this area. That's for sure.
In the United States.
In the United States total now.
That's right. So I got invited out there by Adam Hamilton.
Yeah. Had
never heard of the Church of the Resurrection. I had never heard of Leewood or Johnson County.
I bet not.
And so I enrolled in the seminary in 2012, and the seminary was down on Van Brunt in what's called Northeast Kansas. Van Brunt and I think it was Van Brunt and Truman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Truman and Van Brunt. But anyway, they was moving out here the next year. I didn't know that when I enrolled in the seminary.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have enrolled if I had heard they were moving, but I didn't hear that, and I liked the campus, but. And Adam was giving a presentation that the school was relocating, and they was coming out to Church of Resurrection. So that's how I learned about Church of Resurrection and Adam Hamilton. And then in seminary, I learned about this guy named John Wesley.
Mm-hmm.
I had never heard of Methodist. And then when I learned about John Wesley and how he and his brother Charles, they went and they visited the prisoners like for 9 months straight, like once or twice a week. And their father, Samuel, Wesley even asked him, said, "You boys are going and visit the prisoners?" Said, "That's encouraging. I like the fact and love the fact that you all are doing that." And I learned also that their father, Samuel Wesley, had been put in prison twice.
Oh, yeah?
In debtor's prison. Yeah, he couldn't pay his debt.
Oh, yeah.
Because he had 11 kids. They had 21 kids.
Yeah.
But several, 10 of them didn't survive.
Right.
But 11 of them survived. But he had been put in debtor's prison twice. And so he was encouraged that his sons, that they were going and visit the prisoners. And so, I don't know if they knew he had been to prison himself. They probably knew the mom probably told him he's just away, he's on vacation or whatever. But but that touched him. And of course, they were Anglican. They were not Methodist, but it became Methodist. And I said, man, this guy speak to my experience. And John Wesley, of course, he encouraged his pastors to visit the prisoners.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what brought me back to Jesus, who Jesus said, when I was in prison, did you come visit me?
Yeah.
And I said, man, these guys here, they speak to my experience. So for one, I'm going to be a Christian. That's what my grandmother, taught me anyway.
Yeah.
And two, I'm going to be a Methodist because the Methodists, they believe in trying to do something for the prisoners.
Yeah.
And I said, man, I'm all in with the Methodists. and learn other things about the doctrine and things like that. I said, but and then I started Miracle of Innocence. I was encouraged by some folks at the Methodist Church.
Yeah.
You know, it was one. She's a friend of mine, but she had a tragedy in her life also. Mindy Corcoran. She said these words. You know, Darryl, you've been helped. You need to start an organization to help other innocent people yourself. And I said, man, I don't know how to do that. She said, well, yeah, start a nonprofit. People in this church, they'll help you. So that's how we started Miracle of Innocence. And the name is Miracle of Innocence because it's a miracle to get out of prison,
Sure.
You know, to be found innocent. It just really takes some miracle. As Sean O'Brien, professor at UMKC, said, all the planets have to line up perfectly.
Yeah.
Because it
rarely happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Too rarely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, and Miracle of Innocence was started also because when I got out, you know, Don, I went to a lot of these reentry programs asking for help. They help offenders when they come home, right? With some housing assistance, with some transportation, with, you know, job,
help
everything.
Find a job,
well, I went and asked for help. They said, we can't help you. We don't help innocent people. We only help the guilty. And so you don't fit our criteria.
Wow.
That's what they told me. I said, what? I said, man, I did 25. He says, yeah, Darryl, we're sorry. But it's like somebody walking off the streets who've never been to prison.
Yeah.
And so we only help guilty people. So you guys need to start an innocent program to help innocent people. So that was another reason why that was born. So we got two-pronged approach. We help people get out, and we help them when they come home.
Yeah.
You know, and we got about 5 cases that we're working on right now any given time. We got one guy that's been released, totally exonerated, Keith Corns, and we got another 2 other ladies, young ladies, who we helping. One of them did 44 years in prison as an innocent woman, went in 1980 when she was 20, and she just got out this year. She's out on bond. They gave her reconnaissance bond, but she's still right now. That's, you know, and the appellate courts granted her, you know, because the Attorney General for the state
compassionate release kind of a thing.
Well, the appellate courts, the Attorney General was trying to appeal the judge's decision and saying the judge shouldn't have released her, and the appellate courts just approved and just agreed and affirmed that the judge, what he did was not improper. You know, you know, and everything came in her favor. But this attorney, whoever it is, prosecutor up there in St. Joe, hasn't dismissed the case yet. But that's so we helping her. We helped her. We helped, you know, several other, quite a few people in the community who was exonerated, and they weren't exonerated by our organization, but we helped them anyway because they need that support. They need that help.
Okay. And
then I have an organization that we're about to try to start, you know, to help people who can't get jobs.
Yeah.
It's going to be like a mobile service or hauling services where people, you know, need to get some work, and we want to just try to pay these folks because we don't have any 401ks, Social Security, you know, health insurance covered. We don't have any savings. Yeah. We don't have anything. Yeah, we don't have anything. Yeah. Some get compensated, but many of us don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm doing now. And the minister passed over the church, got a wedding coming up this weekend. I do funerals and do crisis management or crisis, you know, interventions, and that's what I do, you know, and, just trying to give back and paying it forward. I've been blessed, you know, blessed with my freedom. You know, didn't get blessed with any resources or financially, but I say I'm free. You know, that's what counts.
So the Miracle of Innocence, how is it funded, or how are you sustaining it?
Right. Well, we get donations from, you know, donations through, you know,
different
community
foundation organizations, civic organizations.
Donations from in and everywhere. You know, individual donations. We get grants. You know, that's also we get corporate donations. We get, you know, sometimes you know, at least in the last, you know, few years we've gotten some, you know, grants that was pretty significant that kind of help us. Okay. We haven't had anybody to say, look, I'm gonna underwrite you all for a year. I'm gonna sponsor you for a year. You know, so we're looking for some corporate sponsors and things like that where people can help us, you know, and then we can just, you know, hire and contract, as we do with lawyers, to go out and investigators to go out and just do the work, you know, and prove these people in. So we got a case of a DNA case that's really, really promising that we, you know, well, we know DNA and that other guy's case didn't work for him, unfortunately. But we got a case that's DNA, that, you know, strong case of DNA that we're hoping that this, you know, that the attorney generals or the attorneys would just let us, you know, present this guy's case back to the courts. He's been there 20-something years. And so it's just unfortunate, man, that they fight so hard, you know, through, you got to jump through so many hoops to just get, you know, a person who's clearly innocent, you know, out of those places, you know,
So how are you getting the story out to these prospective donors? Is it you personally?
A lot
basically
of it.
Presenting to each of these organizations, asking for whatever you think they can contribute.
I just spoke to a group of guys last night. I spoke to about 12, 13 guys last night, and many of them retired. They have had careers, and it was with Father Fornan. He has also a podcast. I've been on his podcast, but he has a book club where guys read books. And I met with these guys last night, and that's how the word get out, because they had heard about me through him, Father Fornan, but they hadn't heard me tell my story in person. And so that's what they wanted to hear me tell my story in person. And so many of them, last night, said they wanted to see how they can get involved, because they retired big companies that they own. They had, sort of like you, some of them, were very successful. I don't know if they was, hit that $1 billion mark, but they who knows? I didn't ask them.
Well, it doesn't matter what the company sells for, because it matters how many shares of stock you had in it when it sold. So, but just because you happen to be a shareholder and it exits at whatever, everybody gets a different amount, and it's much smaller than most people imagine. But still, it's enough that those of us who've had that good fortune have ways or needs, in many respects, a need to be philanthropic, right? It's when I say need, I mean it's because, again, this noblesse oblige mentality of you have to give back. What is the point of all of this? Now, I know that there are plenty of wealthy people who inherited their money and they came from grandpa or great-grandpa, and their job is to make sure they don't spend it stupidly. And I get that. They're the gatekeepers of somebody else's wealth, and I respect that. But there are plenty of us who are first-generation, successful entrepreneurs or whatever we are, who I think truly do want to help the community in whatever ways can be most effective. And most of us, I think, are not on board with, giving big donations to United Way or these big, corporate sort of charitable organizations, because we can't see the effect of our our philanthropic efforts. We don't know where our money's going.
Right.
We don't know how many cents of every dollar are actually getting to you. But if we deal with you directly, then we know exactly how many dollars are getting directly to you. And I think that's a lot of what I'm sure the guys you met with last night, and certainly that's where my head's at, is how can I have the greatest impact with what I can do, as opposed to, well, I'll just do more. It's kind of like investing and not or going to the horse.
Not seeing a return on it.
You don't know. You haven't vetted it, right? You haven't really. It's like going to the horse race and not vetting the horse and the jockey.
Right.
It's like just throw your money out there and hope you do. You do some good with it.
Yeah.
That's not the way that most of us look at it, especially if you're an entrepreneur, like I guess most people think I am. Is you're an operator, right? You run things, right? You run it the way you want to run it, and hopefully you got a lot of good people around you to help you do it. But you're used to control. You're used to having a direct impact on things. So I think in many respects, once we get out and back to the community, when we're done with our business lives, we look at that the same way: is how can we help?
Right.
And when we say help, it's not just a check.
Right.
It's like meaningful help.
Want to get involved.
Right. So this podcast is part of that for me. It's like, how can I help? I can help by getting your story out there in a compelling way that will get other people aware of your story and what's happened in your life. And
awesome.
Hopefully, what we call in marketing softening the beachhead for you, so that when you do show up, I saw your podcast with Don. That was great. I really understand your story now. You don't have to give me a big pitch about it, or tell the story long. It's like, okay, what are we going to do with it? How do we get to that next, operational level?
You saying some of the same things those guys were saying. Absolutely. That's what they said. Look, we heard your story through the podcast, and so we wanted to meet you personally.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. So, like I said, it's a group of guys that we want to hear and meet you personally, because we want to see how we can help. And some of them right there, and on their phones, they said, let me look up your webpage. I want to see how I can volunteer,
Yep.
And several of them said, and I want to give some money. They did. They gave some money, last night.
Sure.
They said, but we want to give some money to you too, Darryl, because you didn't really get anything. But we want, so some guys, they wrote checks, and they gave them. I said, you guys don't have to do that. I said, no, we want to do this. I had books, like I said, I brought in a box of books, and they signed all the books for them. They said, but they said, here's something we can see. Nobody like injustice. Nobody like to see innocent people go to prison.
Doesn't matter what your political stripes are.
They said, with nobody. They said, we know guys with billionaires, multimillionaires, all the way down to the guys, folks who just ordinary people. But nobody like to see injustice there. This is just an injustice. How could people do something like this to innocent people? It's just, And all of them said, man, we've all been accused of something we didn't do.
Exactly.
And,
I mean, if you spend
yeah.
enough time in business, you will be accused of something you didn't do. And the justice system, and that's why I said to you, I already know it's not about justice at all. It's not about truth at all.
Exactly.
It's about legal technicalities and procedural technicalities.
That's right.
And if you're on the wrong side of the technicality, it doesn't matter what the truth is. I had no idea what nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Correct. That's correct.
And it sounds like your Eighth Circuit appeal was kind of like that.
Yeah.
What about you did file suit though for some compensation with regard to your incarceration, right?
Yeah, my wrongful conviction. Yeah, and like I say, I said that early on, which I probably should have kept that to myself, but they probably gonna fight to keep me in that regard. But yeah, I filed, and it's 2 courts, 2 judges, one federal, one state. Both of them said the same thing, pretty much. It was negligence on the police part. They were negligent, but it didn't violate your constitutional rights.
So the Brady violation of
it didn't work in my case.
Not proffering the exculpatory evidence?
It didn't work in my case. It worked in others' cases. I know several people who've been exonerated and who've been compensated through Brady.
Right.
And they've gotten millions of dollars compensation. I know several.
Yeah.
Men and women. It didn't help me. I said, everything that I get in life, I have to work extra hard for it. And I said, that's been
your life.
That's been my life ever since a little boy. I never liked bullies. I never like I said, it seemed like my dark skin. Some of my brothers seemed like they got selected for things because they was lighter skinned than me. So even in the black community, it's like that's hierarchy. The darker skinned folks kind of get pushed to the side. It's that.
See, I was funny
did you know that?
As a half white person, I had the reverse thought that bright blacks were looked down on, kind of like Russell Wilson, or you see athletes out there that are that are mixed race, right?
Today,
he's not black enough,
right? You talking about today?
Yeah.
Today, that's the case. But back in the day when I was growing up in the 60s and the 70s,
darker.
Oh, if you was darker, the light skin. I mean, if you look at some of the famous actors, with the exception of Sidney Poitier, but if you look at Lena Horne, if you look at Duke Ellington,
it's look white, right?
Right, and then Sidney Poitier and another one was he played the trumpet, Miles Davis.
Yeah.
Sidney Poitier, Miles Davis, and Satchmo.
Okay.
Satchmo. They was probably one of the few of the darker skinned folks. But everybody else was fair skinned.
Yeah.
Fair skinned, from Harry Belafonte to you name it, they was pretty much fair skinned. And then came along and somebody like a Michael Jordan came on the scene,
right,
who was pretty, dark, and then the darker skinned folks started getting some kind of, some kind of play, I would say. But even the women, just about everybody that you can think of that was an entertainer. And
they always had to straighten their hair.
Yeah, Sammy Davis Jr. I think he was probably another one, Sammy Davis Jr.
Yeah.
But they was basically fair skinned, light skin, with good hair, like you said, and
smaller lips and the more straighter nose. Yeah.
Well, you see Michael Jackson, he.
He went that way, right? He wanted to look like a white Diana Ross. Right?
Well, he also had what's called vitiligo skin. He had a skin disease. A lot of folks didn't know that because my mother has it.
Okay.
My mother has skin disease. She is, you wouldn't know it, but she was probably about a little bit darker than you, for most of her life. But now she looked as pale as her whole body, like 90.
So it just took it over all of her skin.
It started with a little dot. She said with a little dot on her arm.
Yeah.
Now, so it has almost covered her whole body with, just she looked like she was Caucasian. Vitiligo, I think that's what they call it. So, but we didn't really, I had to be good in everything growing up, just to get girls to pay me attention.
Sure.
So I had to be good in academics and athletics, and I was. But. And the girls still like the light skin guy.
Well, I had the same problem. I was never. I'm 5'9". I was always overweight. I was 150 pounds when I was in the 6th grade. So I've been battling that all my life. And
that's
like you, man. I came.
That's
I was a chubby 150. There wasn't any muscle. It was just flabby.
Yeah.
But I've spent my life trying to be a better self than I was. But like you're talking about not being comfortable in your own skin.
Right.
Exactly. I was the same way. I mean, because I was the only part Asian person. I'm half Hawaiian. But, in my neighborhood, if you're a little bit almond-eyed or whatever, you're just not one of us.
Right.
And,
so you got probably teased and everything.
Well, I was called all kinds of names. I I wasn't Don. I was the chink.
Exactly.
You know, that's what I was called.
Right.
And,
and it don't feel good.
It don't feel good, and I mean, literally, you'd go to school in the morning and thinking, who am I going to get in a fight with today?
Exactly.
Somebody's going to pick on me. Somebody's going to say something.
Right.
My dad always said,
you
know, the bigger they are, the harder they fall.
Yeah.
And he didn't want me to shy away from it. He didn't want me to run away.
No, right. I had another friend. He was from Nigeria. You know. Me and him was the two dark dots.
Nigerians are very dark.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We was, but we was the same complexion and we was the same size. We was third grade, I think. I can't remember, but he spoke with the accent too. And man, he was on the yard, and they would pick on him. But anytime they pick on him, he'd come running to me, and he'd be crying, and he'd call me Darryl, you come on, Darryl, they picking on me. And I come on, Olusegun, his name Olusegun Adesanya. I said, come on, they're gonna fight me too. They're not gonna pick on you. Yeah, that was my buddy, man. But I never liked bullies, and so they pick on. And I've been trying to connect with him over. Yeah, I said, man, I want to just because we the same age. I said, I want to just see if I can connect. I've tried it, but I can't spell his name right. But I've tried over, through Facebook and other things. But I've asked him Nigerians. I've asked, his name is Olusegun Adesanya. He said, oh, yeah, that's West Africa. That's West Nigeria. Nigeria. I said, do you know? He said, yeah, I don't know how to spell it quite right because they from a different part of Nigeria, but they familiar with it. Yeah. They know exactly that name because that same name is in some west part of Nigeria. Yeah. And so I say, but, I said, man, I'd like to reconnect with my old buddy,
Yeah, that's awesome.
From third grade,
Let me ask you one more serious question about something that it kind of goes unnoticed and maybe for good reason, but in 2018, there was this First Step Act that was passed, and it gave early release to prisoners who had, I guess, credit for doing good during their time incarcerated. But it's been sort of corrupted over the last 6 years to the point where, I guess, trying to be eligible for that, you have to have certain convictions for certain different, mostly drug-related convictions, and they're trying to get people out. The mass incarceration of inner city blacks because of drug dealing and drug addiction and things like that. They're saying, look, we need to clear these prisons of these kinds of folks. If they've done 50 or 75% of their prescribed minimum sentence, then we need to find a way to get them out of there. Mm-hmm. Are you dealing with any of those people, or have you dealt with anybody who is in this First Step program? Because also it affects people 65 years old. There's this compassionate release thing, and then at 70, if you've completed at least 50% of your minimal sentence, you're like automatically released. Do you?
I haven't dealt with anybody. This law in 2018, second chance. What you call it? Second Chance Act.
It's called the First Step Act.
First Step Act.
It's basically giving you a first step out of prison. Get the heck out of here.
Right.
And then we'll give you this compassionate release support.
Now, I dealt with people with the compassionate release. I've worked with some lawyers about that. But it's not miracle of innocence. That's not. That's not something because we deal with innocence.
Yeah, I get that.
So not legal innocence, and not that you was wrong statute. It's got to be 100% innocent. But I've had lawyers call me, to ask me to, either write letters, from my own personal experience to go and testify to help like that. And there's some other cases that I've helped on. I don't know if you're familiar with the Miller versus Alabama. This is a case that was passed where it says that a juvenile couldn't be sentenced to life without parole. That was cruel and unusual.
Right.
And so anybody who fell up under that law and anywhere in the country, they were able to be released if they went in at 17 years old. Yeah. And so I've gone to Florida, St. Louis, and the other, cities, and I've testified in those, cases. And it's been, I don't know, probably a half dozen guys who've been released that I, helped their lawyers, and by way of giving my testimony, and I tell them about the horrors of prison, what it's like when you send a child, basically a 17-year-old in a place like that, or 16, some of them, in case they were certified. I said, you're not sending them into a place where it's going to be, a place of rehabilitation.
Yeah, there's no rehabilitation. It's just punishment. Yeah.
And every guy who I testified for, black, white, or whatever, they've been released. They've been released, and they're doing good. They're doing okay, man. I don't think any one of them has returned to prison. Well, but they did 30 years. Most of them did 30 years or more. They did a lot of time. And
they're saying that these people that are coming out of early release through this First Step program, that only 13% of those people, go back in.
Go back, yeah.
As opposed to the, I guess, the regular statistics, like 47% or something like that.
It's probably higher than that. Yeah, it's over 50%. Recidivism.
Yeah, almost half of people end up going back in to recidivism.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No question, And,
but this program, I guess, is helping people get out, and then going through the compassionate release program, it helps them stay out. Right.
Yeah, and that's great, And most folks who've been there a long time, man, they not going back.
They don't want to go.
No, man. When you've been there over 2 or 3 decades, it's like, man, that's hell on earth. You're like, man, who want to go back to a place like that?
Go back to hell.
And some guys become what you call institutionalized, and they feel like, man, I can't make it out here. I mean, if you saw the movie Shawshank Redemption, Brooks hung himself. I've had guys. There's a couple of guys, friends of mine, and they was compensated. They was millionaires. They got compensated, but they still committed suicide. You look at all the loss.
Well, it's
and all the things that you lost in ways you just can't keep up, and all the technology is just so advanced. I've been low like that, and guys call me from other parts of the country. Hey, Darryl, man, can you come see me, man? I'm having a hard time. I'm struggling. I said, where you at, man? Well, man, I'm up here on the East Coast, man. Yeah, just hang on. I'll be there. I fly out and I go visit with them. Or I'm on the West Coast, wherever. I'm in Texas. So just hold on, man. I'll come. Don't give up. Just hold on till I get there. They know I'm a pastor too now, so I just go. But they know I can identify with what they're going through,
Sure
because I've been there, And
Yeah.
so, but I just want to say this here, for your listeners, is that, if there are 2 million people in prisons in the United States, just statistically, 2 million, if 1% of those people are innocent, that's 20,000 people.
20,000 people.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of folks.
And
If
they
it's
say
one,
it's
it's a lot.
5%. That's right, 1 is too many.
Yeah.
But there are thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not over 100,000 people who are in prison who are innocent. If 5%, that's a lot of people. That's unfortunate, And then when we come home, it's been 3,500 people released from prison, 3,500. It costs $35,000 a year to house a prisoner.
Yeah.
35,000 a year times 3,500. That's $124 million plus. That's a lot of money that's being spent on innocent people being in prison. A lot of our tax dollars, and it shouldn't be that way. So I just wanted to put that out there so people would know.
What would be, in your opinion, what should change in order to keep that from happening? I know you encountered a bad prosecutor, bad system, bad defender, public defender. What would you change about our justice system to keep this from happening to the extent that you just pointed out? I mean, there's 100,000 people potentially in jail for something they didn't do.
Right. I would.
What would you do?
I would give a balanced budget to both the defense and the prosecutor. I would give them the same amount of resources. If the prosecution get $100,000 to try a case, a particular capital case, then the defense should get $100,000 to try that case. If the prosecution can get these so-called experts, forensic folks, and people who can come testify, give the defense the same thing. If the prosecution can go and get somebody in the prison, in the jail, and make a deal with them, they call them jailhouse snitches. If they can do that, I think they should ban that. But if they can do that, then the defense should be able to go into the jail and say, hey, I want you to testify for the defense. Because the prosecutors give them leniency, they give them money. In some cases, they let them go. Well, the defense should be allowed to do the same thing. And if the defense can't do it because they lose their license, they may go to jail. Then the prosecution shouldn't be allowed to do that. And when people get found innocent, if the prosecution, for whatever reason, get discovered that they withheld evidence, that there was some Brady material, exculpatory evidence that they didn't, turn over to the defense, then the pension that they would get when they retire should go to zero, or give it to the person who they wrongfully convicted, like myself. Let that pension be put in a trust for me and for my family. Give me, those funds that you're going to give to this person when they retire, because I don't think that they should be awarded. Because I have nothing. I have no 401k. You shouldn't be awarded, after you retire and you didn't, frame an innocent man. You shouldn't get, those benefits. Your Social Security, you shouldn't get that. I have no Social Security benefits saved. Then that should be awarded to people like me. That's what I think as it relates to change. I know that's a big fight with this, legislation. They probably would never do that. Or they should just say, they should say we're going to compensate because they put money, allocate money for people who are guilty when they come home. Would put some money set aside or put it in the same package for people who are innocent. And a lawyer told me, said, Darryl, you know why they won't do that? Because that's an admission that they saying they know innocent people in prison.
But that's the sort of accountability that's going to be.
That's right.
It's going to have to happen in order to solve this problem.
That's right.
Right. Either you're responsible for your misdeeds or you're not.
Exactly.
And the fact that the prosecution can effectively bribe a witness to testify on behalf of their case, that's like the definition of witness tampering.
That's correct.
Why they get to do it.
Correct.
It's like the congressman being able to trade on insider trading information.
Exactly.
It's illegal for everybody else, but not for me.
But not for
How can it be? How can that even be fair?
That's right.
So I think
guys last night had the same question. They brought up pretty much the same thing you're talking about right now. I said, man, how is it that they're able to do things like that? And the defense or anybody else, in business or in other, company or corporation, you can't cut corners like that. You can't make deals with folks like that and openly. This is not
something but it's not like they're expert witnesses where you have to compensate them to fly in for their expertise. They're not. They have no expertise.
They snitch witnesses, and you go and you pay them.
They're paid informants, basically.
It's paid informants. That's what we call them, professional informants, paid informants. That's correct. That's what they are.
That seems to
be
informants. That seems to me something that could be corrected.
Yeah.
The second part.
Somebody was trying to do something. I think in the state of Kansas. To get that banned.
Yeah. The second part of what you said about punishing the prosecutor and taking away their 401k, that would be really, really hard. I think
that's what they said last night.
But the other part of it, though, the first part about if you add up the number of lawyer hours that you're going to spend on your salaried team to prosecute this case, then whatever that equals, that needs also to go in the form of cash or a voucher to the defense. Because you can then get better consultants, better legal representation.
Investigators.
And if you need expert witnesses now, you can pay them to come in.
That's right.
And, it just seems
you can get those
that would be how to level the playing field. Right, in some way.
Oh, absolutely.
I love that idea. Man.
Yes, I have no question. Yes, that's something that.
So how do we get that out there? How do we get that?
Keep talking, man, and let's talk to legislators. Let's talk to local legislators. Now, I'm not talking about people
because 90% of these politicians are all lawyers. They would get this.
That's right.
This.
Yeah, that's right. 90% of lawyers. I think half the presidents of the United States were lawyers.
Hell yeah.
So you're right. 90% of them are lawyers. They get it. They know. They know.
Well, look at J.D. Vance. I mean,
that's right. He's a lawyer.
He's like a lawyer, super lawyer. His wife is a super lawyer.
Exactly.
Right?
They went to Yale or Harvard. They went to one of them. Yeah. So they lawyers. They know. But that's Washington. That's a whole other animal.
Well, that's a whole different problem. But
I'm just talking about locally though. But we can talk to our local, legislators.
Yeah.
Folks who right here who whether in Johnson County or in whatever they in Jackson County or whatever. We can just try to I want to say lobby at least. We got to
what it takes. I mean, whatever the process is,
we have to get these folks, man, on board. And you know what? And many of them are on board if the community and people in general. Like guy said last night. One of the guys I was talking. He said, you can write 10 of your legislators. Because this is which conversation. He said, but no, write one of them, but write them 10 times.
Right.
That's what get their attention.
Yeah.
And he made a point. I hadn't thought of that. But
or get up and go see him.
Get up and go see him.
Because it's interesting. Back when I first started my business, there were a lot of different healthcare regulations that were just going to hurt us in the long run if they got implemented under Obama, and then after that, even with Trump. Mm-hmm. And so it's not a political thing. It's just stupidity on the part of the federal government because they do stupid things,
right?
Especially when it comes to taxpayer dollars. But I went and interviewed a couple of different lobbying firms out in D.C. and I said, "So how do I get this changed? Because it seems like these people are making decisions in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. They don't know what they're talking about, right? And I'm deep in steeped in the lore of the industry, and I'm trying to get my points across to them, and they said, no, these regulators actually want to hear from you. It's you got to find the right politician who can get you in front of that regulator. Because that's the problem. They are making decisions in a vacuum because they don't hear from people like you.
That's right.
They hear from big corporates. They hear from the Googles of the world and Amazon, and they hear from Pfizer and these other big companies. They don't hear from the guy down on the street.
They hear from the big money people.
Right. That's trying to make this stuff happen in their district. So go see those guys.
Interesting.
So you get somebody from your district who's on the right committee, and then you get him to take you or her to take you to the right people on the committee who actually make stuff happen.
Wow.
And so it's a whole process. But what you just proposed, this leveling of the playing field economically.
Yeah.
That seems to me that's something
It
simple
seemed like
to
a
do.
no-brainer, man.
It's like getting, it's like a school voucher where you don't want to go to public schools. You get a voucher.
Yeah,
Why?
right.
Because I want my kid to have a level playing field when it
Right.
comes to education.
Yeah.
If the public schools are crap, then I want my kid to go to a charter school or something like that. All I need is a voucher for what you were going to spend on them anyway.
Right,
And
right.
I'll go spend it over here.
Yeah.
And if I have to spend a little bit more out of my own pocket to make it happen, okay, fine.
Right.
But at least I've got the basic,
Yeah.
parts of it covered. So I think that's the kind of policy position that could really find traction with the right politicians.
Yeah.
And I don't even, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle they're on. It doesn't really, because
No,
I think,
it
like you
doesn't
said,
matter.
everybody wants justice. Nobody wants
Everybody-
injustices
that's
like
right.
this. Nobody wants this.
Exactly. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't
Nobody.
matter.
Nobody. So, it's not even a political fight.
Right.
The fight is,
Yeah.
and what I think is that in a political season, in a political year, nobody also want to be looked like they soft on crime. And that's
Right.
that's what it comes down
Well,
to.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
think that there's always going to be politicians.
That's what I've experienced in the political
Yeah, no,
years.
it could be,
Yeah.
but I think there are always going to be politicians out there, though, who are the law and order type,
Yeah.
who could understand this argument, because you would have to be dead inside not to respond to your story. You'd have to be dead inside, and I don't think these guys are. I think they just
listen to some of the rhetoric that they run on
Yeah,
in this
but,
time of year.
I hear it.
But after the elections and different things, things.
After November, after next week,
Right. Yes,
I think you can actually get the real people,
Right.
and have real conversations,
but,
because the
yeah.
campaigning's over.
Because there's no question. But I've heard, I've prosecuted this. I've prosecuted this many people. I've been law and order. I've been, I've heard the rhetoric. And I go, like I say, because I'm down the middle. I've gone to, political campaigns on both sides.
Yeah.
Because my story is, it's
Right.
universal. All of you folks, man, have a stake in,
Right.
in somebody being sent to prison who are innocent.
Absolutely.
Every one of you,
Yeah.
So what we're saying
Well, how
is,
can you live with yourself?
Yeah,
it's got to hurt your soul at some point in
Something,
time.
yeah,
Your soul's got to
exactly,
get, like I said, you have to be dead inside,
Exactly.
not to be compelled by
Yeah.
your story to
That's
go do
right.
something right. And so I don't think it matters what
I'm going
politics
to
are.
tell you another
Yeah,
story
you go
right
ahead.
quick while we're talking about it. South Dakota is where the 8th Circuit, that's where
Yeah.
they meet up in South Dakota. Some of them, anyway. They cover different states in Missouri, South Dakota. I forget the other 7, 8 states. But anyway, I was up there and I gave a presentation at this huge, it was a huge convention. It was what it was. And I'll just make this quick. A bunch of judges, lawyers, prosecutors. At the end of that convention, at the end of the presentation, a lawyer came to me crying uncontrollably, boo-hooing. And I said, okay, what's wrong, man? It's going to be all right. She said, no, Dale, you don't understand. When I was a young lawyer, fresh out of law school, she was in another state, she said, we had evidence. We knew that the man was innocent, and we didn't give it to the defense. He was executed. That could have been you. Yeah. And she was crying, and she hugged me, and she, I said, well, man, why don't you just do the right thing right now? Let his family know.
Yeah.
Let the victim's family know.
Right.
I said, I know it's hard, it's challenging. And she just looked at me and hugged me, tears running down her face, and she just turned and walked away. But I said, see, and the judge who had sent me who had, in that 8th Circuit Court of Appeals opinion, the judge who had denied me, is the 3 names, William, Bowman, and Bye. I never forget it.
Yeah.
Woolman, Bowman, and Bye. But one of the judges was there. And I'd met him, and he didn't know, he wasn't there when me and her was talking, but he was there at this convention where I was speaking. And the lawyer said, that's one of the judges that was part of your 8th Circuit Court of Appeals hearing who denied you. You want to meet him? Yes, I want to meet him. And I met him, up there in South Dakota.
Yeah.
And they told him who I was. He couldn't remember until they really brought his mind back, to focus on it. He said, oh, that's interesting. He said, let me get your card. I want to go and take a look. And I want to see, about this case. He said,
refresh his memory.
Yes, right. He said, it's kind of nice. He said, but I want to make sure. So the lawyer gave him the card and gave him my name, and he went and he called that lawyer back the next day.
He did.
He said, yes, that case, I remember that case. I'm sorry. He said, it looked like the system worked. He said, system worked. 25 years later? Come on, man. But he said, I'm going to put something in my file. I want to follow this gentleman in this case. Then I went back again, and I saw him again.
Yeah.
And he came, and he had his wife there because, they letting him know ahead of time I'm coming.
Yeah.
So he had his wife there, his kids, and they wanted to take pictures with me. you know. I said, okay, man. Yeah, I'm happy. We'll take a picture.
You know how many times I cussed you out?
I'm telling you.
You have no idea what I used to say about you.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you know, but yeah, we took pictures, and he was telling other, you know, because he's sitting on the 8th Circuit Court. He was telling other folks who I was.
Was he still sitting on the bench?
No, no. He's still, you know, that's lifetime appointment.
Oh, that's a point. Yeah, appointment for life.
He's still sitting there now. Yeah, so, but he, you know, had other folks coming and telling them who I was and everything.
So he's all proud of himself.
Yeah, you know, I sat on his case. I was one of the judges on his case, and he said, I think I was the one, because it was one dissent.
Yeah,
it was 2-4, you know, to the it was 3 judges panel and 1 dissent. You know,
he was probably that.
He said he think he was. He said, I think I was dissent. But you would know that, wouldn't you? Because
it would be
you got the dissenting opinion. It would be
yeah, where's the dissenting opinion?
Well, I don't, you know, I didn't see a dissent in that opinion. I don't remember seeing a dissent.
He could probably claim credit for it, and you would never know. Right?
You're right. I don't remember seeing a dissenting opinion. They may have been debating back in chambers or whatever, but in that opinion, I mean, it's just a 15-page opinion. It's not a long opinion. I put it in the book.
Yeah.
But I didn't see anything that said dissent. You know, but that's what he was saying to people, and I said, okay. Well, all right, man. However, just your story. You can tell it how you want.
Before we wrap up, I want to ask you: is there anything that you want to say that I haven't asked you about?
Yes, I mean, I just, you know, as with all things, I just like to say I thank God for allowing me to still be here and to be able to share, you know, a story that has, you know, I hope to be impactful, you know, encouraging and inspiring, because we're storytellers. That's what we do, you know, with the podcast and with just in general, we tell stories all the time. But I want people to remember people like Marcellus Williams, who through DNA, you know, which we thought that would be the gold standard, and that didn't help Marcellus. The victim's family, the prosecutor who said, no, don't execute him, and then $10,000 that was used to pay witnesses to come forward. It's like, say, just buying testimony, snitch witness testimony. So I just want people to remember that if you ever been accused of something you didn't do, God forbid you end up in a place like where people like myself and Marcellus ended up, you know, in prison, you know, and perhaps on death row and was innocent. So that's what I like to share with people. And if you have, you know, family and children and grandchildren, man, just hug them, you know, and thank God for them, you know, and just do whatever you can to share with them about, you know, trying to just do the right thing. And you can do the right thing and still end up on the wrong side of the law.
Yeah, so. I you know, gathered in talking with Kyle Hollins a couple of weeks ago and yourself that the inner city culture is just very difficult to break out of, no matter how much your moral compass points you in that direction. When you have everyone around you, you know, conscripted into that lifestyle, it can be, I'm sure, almost impossible to break out of.
That's right.
And so, you know, the fact that you're working with people so they don't end up, you know, ruining the rest of their lives once they at least get released and get part of their lives back. It's just an important ministry to be on, and so I applaud you for that.
Oh, absolutely. You know, and thank him for what he's doing, and we continue to, like I say, just try to, you know, make the world a little bit better, one person at a time.
Yeah.
Well, I met a lady and a gentleman yesterday, and I didn't really know their story, but her name is Judy Sabert, and she has a powerful story, you know, and of course she's done some podcasts, and she's got a book out as well. It's called Dancing. What is it called? Dancing. I call it Dancing the Pain Away. No, Daring to Dance. That's the name of her book. Daring to Dance. Yes, but man, she has a powerful story, and it's one of those tearjerkers. If you ever get a chance, I can give you, you know, her contact if you're interested. But she has a powerful story also.
Well, I'll tell you, you're the first guest that I've had on that I've shed a tear over. Your story is so compelling. You are, as a person, and
thank you.
I thank God that you're here, that you can be here with me today, and thank you for your time, which I know is precious to you, as it should be. And so,
well, done a lot of time, Don, you know, so time keep marching on. I will say this here. I'm working with a group of folks, and we're in the process of turning my story into a movie, docu-series, and so I like to just plug that in. Rebecca Hubble, John Lauro, there's also a gentleman named Simon Schwartz, there's Michael Parmalee, there's Kip Robertson. These are some of the folks who, Guido, we're working with right now in my story.
Well,
and we're taking the book, and they're going to do present it, and start now to try to raise, you know, the kind of resources that's needed to turn it into a film or movie.
By the way, did you ever reconnect with Jessica?
I didn't. You know, you over Facebook. I did. I reached
You
out
did.
to her on Facebook.
You did.
Yes, I did.
So you
in
are
fact, but
connected with her a little bit?
well, yeah, I reached out, but it's been some time now. It's been some years, but of
Yeah.
course she had grown. She had a family.
Does she know the impact she's had on your life?
But she know, yeah. She don't. She
doesn't?
She know. I never had a chance to tell her that, and I was hoping I could meet her in person, but
Yeah.
I did tell her I was out. She was happy that I was out, and I said, something over Facebook to her, and then of course her name has changed from.
He's married now.
She's married now, but she was happy that I was out, and I posted
Yeah.
something on Facebook. We messaged each other, and then, I said, she's married, she's got a
life.
family,
Yeah, she's
right.
got her
So
life.
yeah, but I just wanted to know, and she saw it in the news also. So she said she was really happy for me, and so but it never really followed up. Now that you mentioned it, I probably will. I probably.
Well,
follow up on it.
if you have her, if you're connected with her and friends with her on Facebook, when we send you this to you personally, you can post it in Messenger to her directly.
Yes,
and let her know that you did. You don't have to put it out there publicly, but
Right.
you can send it to her privately through Messenger and let her see.
No, it's public. It's going public with me.
Yeah. Well, we're going to give you what we're going to give you first is an early cut.
Yeah.
So that you see the raw footage.
Yeah.
See what you think of it. And if there's anything you've said that you want us to edit out or something that you don't feel comfortable with, we're happy to do that.
Everything you talked about, because it's all raw and real.
Yeah.
I mean, like I say, I don't cut out anything, man.
We don't typically.
I don't cut out
because it's not authentic. We want it to be as authentic as possible,
exactly.
and just a conversation between two people. I mean, that's kind of what Trump did with Rogan the other day, and I guess JD Vance is doing it today. But just a normal conversation. That's why I didn't want to spend a lot of time just on your incarcerated story and how you dealt with it, because that's already out there. I really wanted to talk about you and the effect it had on you, and now the ministry that you're doing, and how you ended up in that situation in the first place. And I think that's part of the story that, I unfortunately I didn't get a chance to read your book, but I will now.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely, because there's a whole lot more in the book that I can tell, 20, 30 minutes or an hour and a half. But you're going to see a lot of interesting stories. You're going to say,
you're going to make me cry again.
Well, that's probably what's going to happen. Yeah,
there's certain I cry at commercials. So
yeah, I do too.
If it's the right commercial.
That's right. Depending on what it is. Yes,
Darryl,
absolutely.
Thank you. This has been fabulous. I'm so delighted that you were here.
No, thank you, Don. I appreciate that.
Pleasure to meet you.
You too.
And I wish you the best going forward.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
All right.